This evening, June the 27th. Can you believe June's almost gone? The hour is 5:31, and I will call us to order. Ask that we be led in prayer by Commissioner Denise Terry.
Thank you. I would just like to have a moment of silence tonight for our country and the discord and divisiveness that we are experiencing, and hoping that we can come together as Americans soon. So a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to ask that we be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the CFO of Center College, Mr. Brian Huxley. You want to come up and lead us in the pledge?
You can do it.
You can do it. I promise you. We'll prompt you.
All right. Where am I going?
Right up here.
Is this payback?
Thank you, sir. Now, for your trouble, hang on, Mr. Huxley, hang on. We have a little something for you. Comes with a paper clip for your charge. We expect you to wear this at Center College from now until forever.
All right.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you. I've not heard anything to the contrary about the agenda. I will say this: we are deleting item 23 and moving item 24 up to item 1. And if that meets your approval, I will move on to hear the public. This is the public's opportunity to have 3 minutes at the podium to talk about anything that is on tonight's agenda. Same thing will happen midstream of the meeting to do the same on any item that's not on tonight's agenda. So, anybody want to take the microphone for 3 minutes? Any item on the agenda?
Well, if you just because I'm not sure if this is on the agenda, so I'll wait patiently if I need to come back later. But regarding the construction of the new Central Fire Station, does that include a safe haven baby box? No. No. Why is that?
What's our headless city manager doing down there?
That's something we added at the other station, did we not? We have not added. That's something we'll talk about with the fire staff.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll have an update to come in a future meeting.
I thought that conversation had happened once before, and I don't know that we had followed up with this station yet. I do remember us briefly talking about it at staff, but we'll follow up with the chief and assistant chief.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Moving right on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. At your convenience, Chair will entertain a motion for the approval or correction.
Well, I have a correction.
Yes, ma'am.
On the Juneteenth proclamation, it says I made a second, and I was not here.
Anybody remember who did that?
Oh, I did it.
Okay.
So I'll move for approval with that correction.
We have a motion by
Second.
Commissioner Terry, second by Commissioner Cottle. Any further conversations? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 2 is, let's go up here to the next item, which is, we're moving item 24, which is a resolution 2022-06-27-11. This is a contract with Sourcewell. I think Mr. Mulholland is with us looking dapper.
Dressing up.
Yes, sir.
This resolution is to purchase a second fire truck. The reason we're doing this is because fire trucks are anywhere from 455 to over 600 days out. I've spoken with the Lexington Fire Chief. They're almost 2 years out on their new fire trucks. So this is the resolution for you to replace engine 18 for $841,000. It's the same Rosenbauer. It has, this is a kind of a different chassis. This is the Avenger. It's the more modern, more room for the firefighters, more safety features in it. It also has a four-man cab, bronze pump, 1,000 gallons of water. It has the Haas alerting system, which if you're using GPS in your car, if the fire truck's lights are on, it will actually tell you there's a fire truck ahead and there's an emergency.
Cool.
So that's some new features, yes. It has a clean air recirculation system for the firefighters because cancer is a big thing. It actually scrubs the air through carbon and HEPA filters every 15 minutes. So it has a foam system, which will help us with the distilleries and the newer vehicles running around town with the different type of fuel systems in them.
Will that phone system also be a benefit at the airport?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It absolutely will.
Normally, we don't have two trucks on order at the same time. This is new, partly because of the lead time. We really don't necessarily have tremendous confidence that it will be here in 400 days, 455 days. The purchase is in the long-term capital plan. It is considered in our capital plan. So staff recommends proceeding with the acquisition and understanding that in 2 years we'll be on schedule. Talk about a minute, if you will, the condition of some of the other trucks that we're trying to deal with right now.
Our current trucks just are not lasting. Our newest engine, which is engine 18, is a 2014. It's been in service less than a month this year so far. At one point, you probably saw the ladder truck riding around town quite a bit. That's because our two fire engines were broke. Engine 18 has had massive repairs having to done to it. It cracked the frame. The pump was actually broke also. Luckily, those were under warranty.
Okay.
But you're looking at $25,000 to $30,000 if it wasn't. And we're well over budget for our maintenance because the trucks are they're just not holding up.
What cracked the frame?
They don't know. It
I-
was I'm assuming it's a design flaw. It was the frame extensions. This engine 18 was built to do what it's doing, and it has extrication tools in the front bumper. And they say that that was too much weight for the extension, so they took it back and fixed it at the factory.
That would have been a good thing to know prior to.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and Ladder One does a great job for what it's supposed to be doing. That's, large industrial, commercial, a little bit on the fuel side. That truck gets about 1.5 miles to the gallon. So we try to keep that in-house as much as we can. The other engines get more fuel than that. So
The truck that we have on order, we ordered it when?
we ordered that one in September of 2021. It's not even the halfway point yet. So we're projecting it's more than likely going to be January of 2023. This truck, if you allow us to purchase it today, by the time we receive it, it's going to be closer to 2024.
I see nothing that says we have to write a check today.
No, sir.
And does this lock in the price?
Locks in the price. The other thing, keep in mind too, we drug our feet slightly on the first one, partly because of COVID, if you'll recall. There was some discussion, and I know that not everyone remembers, but we did try to approach that conservatively, not really knowing what we were facing. And so in 2021, we did try to get back on track with it. There is long lead times on everything. And so we are certainly appreciate the commission's willingness to consider this item and certainly recommend it.
Absolutely.
So is this the manufacturer of this truck, the same one that manufactured the one that's not
No,
running
sir.
very well? Okay.
No.
Okay.
This truck manufacturer, we've had a lot of problems with getting parts, just like anything else. This truck manufacturer uses its parts from, like, let's say for Napa, for example. We could run out here and get the parts. We've already confirmed through the spec sheet that they have the parts. Engine 18, for example, was down for almost a month waiting on a windshield washer pump. They have windshield washer pumps out here at Napa, but it will not fit. So we had to wait until we had the custom come in. And the reason we're going with Rosenbauer is because of that fact. We went up north, we did a lot of research. The parts are a lot more readily available than some of the trucks we currently have.
So if I heard you correctly, is engine 18's got the cracked chassis?
Yes, it's
How
been
long had
replaced.
we had that?
That truck is a 2014 model,
Okay.
and it's also the one that has a cracked pump manifold.
Right. Are you satisfied with their repair, or do we even know what they're gonna do in the repair?
Yes, the frame was repaired. It seems like it's working fine. It's created some of the issues been reporting for several years. This is the second time the pump manifold has had some issues. So it's up in a different shop in Louisville, getting repaired. So we're gonna test it extensively before we take possession back of it to make sure it does function correctly.
Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
I'll move for approval of resolution number 2022-062711.
Commissioner Cardle, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Terry, thank you, ma'am. Discussion, if any more? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Can I drive it?
Absolutely. Whenever it gets
That's the
here.
first time, usually they say no.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Have a good evening. Thank you. Now, we'll go right on to item 2, and this is the update with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, one and only Kendall Clinton.
So like everybody else, we've been working on budgets. We recently passed our FY23 budget and pretty excited about our revenue projections and how we're going to be spending those funds over the next year. I'll go over that first, but first I wanted to talk about who's actually on our board. I'm not sure if you all know who all our board members are. I'm sure the public probably doesn't, so thought I'd give you that information. Alex McCroskey is our current board chair. He's serving out his first term and didn't want to be reappointed, so he's being replaced. And we also had an open board seat that's being filled, both of those as of July 1st. So with Alex's departure, we're going to have new board leadership. Lynn Ty, she's going to become the chair of the board. Janet Hamner will become vice chair, and Tim Montgomery will be our treasurer. Susan McGilligan, who's the general manager at the Hampton Inn, and Rick Saris, they're also current board members. And we're adding John Bowling and Lisa Bottom. So as of July 1st, that will be our board. Looking forward to continue working with the board members that were already there, and met with John today, and I meet with Lisa tomorrow just to kind of give them the Tourism 101 and start getting their input. But back to our budget. On June 20th, the CVB board approved a total budget of $661,628, which is a little misleading because we are getting some ARPA and EDA funds, one-time money. We're also going to have a carryover in the amount of about $250,000, which was the result of understaffing and no staffing during some periods during the past couple of years when they weren't paying anybody. So we've built up a little bit of a reserve. We're anticipating room tax revenue of about $255,000, and that's our main source of revenue. About $18,000 from the EDA grant, and another $125,000 we think from ARPA funds. Still haven't gotten a final number on that, but we think that's about what we'll receive. And both of those funds are going to be able to be spent over multiple years, so we're only going to spend a portion of those in the next coming fiscal year. We also think we'll get about $12,500 in matching funds from the State Department of Tourism, which is through a marketing co-op program they offer. And of course, the $250,000 carryover. With that revenue, we're going to spend about $37,000 on local sponsorships for things like brass bands, Soul of 2nd Street, different local events. We'll spend another $167,000 toward advertising and marketing, which includes everything from digital and print to brochures and paid brochure distribution. Just over $165,000 is budgeted in the category of community investment, which will be for a couple projects we're still researching, but they'll directly enhance the local visitor experience when those work out. Another $13,000 is budgeted for professional memberships, continuing education for CVB staff. We're going to spend about $30,000 on operations, and just over 142,000 on personnel expenses. Of the EDA and ARPA money, we're going to carry over about $106,000 to spend in the next couple fiscal years after this year. So that's kind of the overview of the budget. The room tax has gotten back to pre-pandemic levels. We're seeing good occupancy rates at the hotels, so things are looking good there. Looking ahead the next several weeks, we're also involved with and assisting in a number of different events. Doc Dogs is coming up July 5th through 17th at the showroom. We're helping sponsor that. We're going to have a presence there to, represent CDB and hand out brochures. Still helping the Kentucky Goldwing Road Riders with their event coming up at the showroom in August. I'm in touch with them on a regular basis as they've got questions about the venue and different things in town, so we're still working with them. And we've been very involved with the organizers of the Deaf Festival, which I'm not sure if you all
Oh, good.
heard much about that, but that's
Yeah.
coming up September the 3rd at the Norton Center, expecting to bring somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 people from around Kentucky and surrounding states. So it's a pretty big event, and I've been working with Rachel Rogers and Virginia Moore on that pretty much every week. We've done quite a bit to provide them information and some other things. And finally, a couple weeks ago, the film crew from the show Downstream, the KET show we're having filmed, they were here during Brass Band Festival, and then the weekend after that, did their filming. Don't have an air date yet, but they're supposed to put the video together in July and then get with KET about an air date. So we're looking at probably sometime this fall. When they do schedule that, we will have a local premiere party, show it to the locals first before it airs on KET. And along with that, we continue to do our normal day-to-day stuff, working with local tourism entities and getting out brochures and doing what we do. Any questions?
No, I was going to say, what can we do to help you,
To help me.
help the organization?
Okay. Well,
Not
one
you
thing everybody can
personally.
do is.
I don't know that you need any help, but.
Okay,
go ahead.
well, I mean, one thing everybody can do is be ambassadors for us. Anytime you're out and about in other communities, just always talk up Danville. So I tell everybody, everybody that lives here is an ambassador when you're out of town, so.
Do that.
With that kind of windfall, do you all have a business plan? I mean, I know you've articulated a little bit of that here, but do you have a written business plan?
Written business plan, no.
Might I suggest that? And if no other reason, you're one person,
Right.
and something happens to you, somebody's got to come in there. They've got a means of continuity.
Good point.
And I'd like to see that back if you don't mind.
All right. We'll
Thank
work
you.
on that.
Thank you.
Kendall, can you let us know where the community investment money ends up going?
Yeah, we will.
Oh, okay.
We spent a little bit of it already on a few things, like we're using a travel writer who, she's done some blog work for us. You may have seen some of the things she's done for us recently. But yeah, we know how the EDA money is going to be spent. We had to apply for that and tell them what we were going to spend it on. So we came up with a schedule for that. The ARPA funding, we don't know exactly how they're going to let us spend it. We're thinking it's probably going to be marketing and advertising, but we're waiting on the final details. They're still pouring through the legislation and figuring out how to distribute that and when it'll be received.
Well, thanks for doing such a exceptional job bringing in new things and getting the word out. So
Thanks.
there's lots of fun things to do in Danville.
There, yeah.
Thanks, Kendall.
Lowell
Thanks.
County.
Item 3 is an update on planning and zoning. Steve Hunter.
I was just before the commission and during the budget discussions, and I think I gave a pretty detailed report on some activities then, but I think that ran through March. So with this kind of quarterly update, I thought I'd give you some construction updates and financial and just work through a couple items here. We'll start with construction projects for the months of April, May, and June, and I'll just focus on zoning permits. It's been kind of a slow quarter for this spring. In the month of April, we actually only did 2 zoning permits, and those were for firework tents. In May, we did 4 zoning permits, again, 2 firework tents, and some new storage buildings down by Walmart, about 26,000 square feet of storage buildings going in, if you're going down there on Kim Avenue. I don't know if you went back there and saw them. So again, pretty slow quarter. We've actually done 0 deposits for the month of June, which is a first. Not made one trip to the bank yet this month, so that's not good, but I think we got some projects coming on the horizon, some more distillery-related items, some more storage buildings, and then there's a 5-star construction project that's going to kick off here pretty soon. So we'll have a couple projects, we think, in the next quarter. Outside the zoning permits, the other things that typically we don't see in Danville, but we had 2 projects are what we call major subdivision projects. Those are subdivisions with new streets. And I know you guys remember the Colonial Heights, Candlewood zone change controversy a little bit there. That zone change was denied, but the developer did file a major subdivision project for a portion of street under the current zoning standards, which is R1A. If you remember, it was already zoned the largest single-family lots. 18 lots were submitted with a short section of street, so it's just a phase of that 40-some acres. For 18 lots that would connect to Ridgeview, preliminary and final approval of the plat is finished. The construction plans are at the city engineer's desk to be looked at, and then we're waiting on the developer bond and the developer contract, and then we'll be ready to start building the street out there on Ridgeview. The second one is Nancy Davis. Again, there's a 5-star project's been approved at the corner of Summit Drive and the bypass, and there will be a new street that goes with it to the south side, or I guess, is that the west side? West side of that property. So there'll be a new street segment that'll serve the backside of the 5-star project. So those are 2 new street projects that are happening inside the city limits. Really, that's our whole construction report, unfortunately, for the first quarter. Again, not a lot of activity there. As far as financial items, we're close to closing out the fiscal year, so I'll just tell you, assuming, again, we don't do much more revenue side, we're already at 104% of our revenues for the year, so we've made our budget target revenues. We're just slightly over. And our expenses are targeted to come in at about 93%. So we should be in a pretty good place. We're about $14,000 better than we were even at the budget phase when we came in here with the preliminary budget. So we're estimating our carryover could be somewhere around $81,000 for the year. So, and we'll have more information on that at the end of June, and then we'll get our audit started right after the 1st of July. So with that, the last item are some staff-related news items. And I'm sure some of you all have maybe heard, maybe not. I have resigned my position as the planning director here. I submitted a letter June the 7th to the Planning Commission, resigning my position. And my last day will be July 22nd of coming up here. The Planning Commission has a personnel committee. They've already kind of got in motion with a recruitment effort. They put several items into play that actually were approved at the Planning Commission last week, but the Personnel Committee's already been kind of working on some items. I'll just tell you some of those things that are going to happen during the interim period here after I leave or before I leave. The Personnel Committee is 3 members. That's Jeff Baird, Jim Boyd, and Steve Griffin. And they've sort of expanded that to be a Personnel Committee plus 2 at-large members, 2 other planning commissioners, and that's going to be Sally Davenport and Tom Ruby. So there'll be 5 planning commissioners of the 10 that'll go through the recruitment process, interview process, and screening resumes. The ad has gone out in several places: Kentucky League of Cities, Kentucky Association of Counties, the American Planning Association national website, APA Kentucky, APA Ohio, and APA Tennessee. Those are all regional chapters for American Planning Association, as well as we put the ad on Indeed website. So resumes are already starting to come back. They are all going to our legal counsel. They're not coming to the office here. They're all going care of our attorney's office. They're pulling all the resumes together, and they'll be staffing the search committee with resumes, interviews, and all that kind of stuff. So that's all working through Smith, a legal firm out of Nicholasville. In addition, since I'm leaving on the 22nd, and it's very unlikely they'll have someone hired by then, they've also decided to kind of do interim directors. It's not exactly what you may think of as an interim director. They're really going to be two planning commissioners. They're going to sort of divvy up some duties here just to make sure there's some oversight, because we only have one employee right now who's going to have to kind of do some extra things, but they wanted to make sure there was kind of some hierarchy there as far as some small things. Terry Mannon, who's chair of the Budget Committee, will handle the financial stuff. That's kind of what he does every day, coordinating with me. So he'll make sure the bills are getting paid, working with our accounting firm as far as checks moving around, that kind of thing. And then Jeff Baird, the chair, will be the interim director for day-to-day operational things. Again, if something happens in the office with the contract or the vehicle, just somebody in place. So Lisa Bowman of our staff isn't just all by herself trying to walk through these processes. And that was the other kind of last item, was Lisa will have to assume a portion of my duties in the interim. We're going to give her a small time, or short term, not small time, it's actually to her probably big time, but it's a pay increase just for the interim period as she picks up some extra duties. The goal here is that really none of the processes stop. Everything kind of still come through the office. There just won't be two sets of eyes looking at everything. It'll just be her kind of day-to-day in the office. And unfortunately, there'll have to be a day or two where we may have to shut the window down. You know, we work hard not to do that, but if she's the only staff in the building and she needs to be out for some reason. But that's where the interim directors come in. The goal is they're not going to be in the office every day. They're just going to be in there a few hours a week, making sure, you know, we're doing our payroll, that kind of stuff. And they're not taking any compensation for that interim role either. But so if there was a chance she had to be out, one of those interim directors would probably be in the office. So with that, the last thing I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank the City Commission for your all support since I've been here, financial support, all the guidance you guys have given me personally, and the commission. If we just, over the last 5 years, I don't know if you know, it's actually been 5 years almost to the day. So my last day will be exactly about 5 years. Hard to believe. It's just, she's like, I literally just asked city staff how to use the postage machine the other day. I didn't use the postage machine. I just weighed it so I would know how many stamps to put in from, you know. But literally, I was like, how's this work again? So seems like I just got here, but yeah, I'm leaving to take another job, and I start August 1. So I want to thank you guys for everything you've done, and I'm sure the Planning Commission will get someone in the seat, and we'll just keep things rolling. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have, or
No, I'm just
anything
going
you
to
might.
thank you for what you've done and wish you the best in your new
Appreciate it.
position. It's, Versailles is a nice town.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to get to stay on my farm in Lincoln County and just
Okay.
drive every day for the time being. You know, I don't think anybody can afford to live
Yeah,
there.
that's-
I may have missed it. Did you say where you're going?
Versailles, Midway, Woodford County.
Can you get us a copy of the not resumes, but the
Job description.
job description?
Yeah, everything is, interesting enough, it's, I can send you a link, it's on our website, but it's in the KLC ad too, and on their website. But there's an ad, and we have a link then to the full job description. And the Planning Commission did work on the salary range a little bit to try to make it a little more attractive, I think, and looked at some market stuff through the league to set the salary range at hopefully a salary to get a good applicant pool.
I want to ask our city, did you have something?
Just some thank yous.
Yeah.
Want me to go ahead?
I thought I said, yeah, please.
Well, I just wanted to thank Steve and also the Planning Commission for bringing Danville into the 21st century, finally. The citizens just have been so thankful for the open door policy, for the phenomenal high-tech maps. I'm sure Kevin uses them all the time, and even, you know, Denise looking up zoning. And as we're working on economic development, it's just fantastic that developers can go do all their applications online. When I left, we had the highest fees in the whole state, I think. did we? A top, almost the highest fees for our citizens. And at the request of City County, Mr. Hunter worked to lower for the citizens the fees, and without asking for any more taxpayer money. So thank you. Two more things. Thank you for bringing our sign ordinance legal and up to date. And thank you for the Airbnb regulations. They've been an example to other counties around us. So in so many ways, we've really gotten into the 21st century. So thank you and the Planning Commission for all of their hard work doing so many things. I could probably list 30, so thank you.
One of the features of being in City Hall, we don't want to inconvenience the customer when she's out. Is there some way we can work out so that somebody comes to that window, there's somebody in the seat there to greet them?
Yeah, well, I don't know about, we can figure something out. We'll get with Steve tomorrow and try to work through things like that. There's a couple questions we could have that would be beneficial to answer. Phone calls, just the phone number, maybe, I don't know, we can figure out a way to get it answered or something.
Well, interesting enough, Rusty's in our suite now too, and he's a county employee. So we actually coordinate pretty well, lunch hours, and, I'm not saying he's willing to sit there and do the planning commission business, but we actually do work together to kind of stage some things. If I was out or Lisa was out, Rusty's kind of the backup to that. He doesn't catch our phones, but the goal is not to have any disruption in service. And again, the planning commission's goal is to make this hire fairly quickly if they can. The resumes, the deadline, the cutoff there is July 15th, and the hope is they'd have someone in place by Labor Day, if possible.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Item 4 is the engineering report. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I don't know what's going on with our color on our projector tonight, but it should look like a nice sunny day in that picture. But we usually try to guess the street. That's West Broadway, but you can't tell with the way it's showing up tonight. So it looks fine on the next slide. Public services update. The Public Works garage renovations, that is currently advertised and out to bid. I have a typo there. That should say July 12th, not June 12th, is when we'll be opening bids on that project. Anticipated start date of August 1st, and probably wrapping it up early winter, maybe January for that project. Otherwise, Public Services has just been working on the usual summertime work of drainage improvements, potholes, and road cuts. We've been assisting a little bit with the concrete work at the new Central Fire Station to avoid some pretty large change orders here at the end of the project. We've utilized some talent we have on our crews to do some work in-house and to save the city substantial amounts of money, tens of thousands of dollars. So this picture here is actually just last week. They were down on Aspen doing some drainage work, cleaning out a culvert. That new development that's occurring on Boffman has kind of revealed some things that we needed to maintain that had not been maintained for a long time. So we're down there cleaning out culverts and making sure that everything's working well drainage-wise in that area.
That was going to be one of my questions tonight, because a citizen on Aspen said that it was affecting them, so
Yep.
thank you.
Here's some more pictures of things they've been working on lately. That's the picture on the left is the corner of Dillahay and Fern, where we have widened that turning radius so semi-trucks can make that turn since the closure of Dillahay. We'll be paving that as part of our paving list in July. In the middle is we went down to the airport last week and helped hang up a new windsock at their facility with our bucket truck. And then that picture on the right is them pouring the new foundation for the communication tower behind the new fire station. And Central Fire Station project, you can see the budget here. We have a total construction budget of $5.8 million. We are just a little over $5 million in expenditures at this point. The project is actually considered substantially complete. We did the walkthrough on June 8th, and we could occupy the building now if we needed to. They still have a long punch list that they're working through at the moment. We're adding things on the exterior to it. I still think we're looking at I don't know when the fire station wants to move in, but they've started moving some small stuff over there already. But we still have some upcoming things that we're working on. the Memorial Plaza, trying to push that as hard as I can to get that moving. We're getting ready to order materials for it outside of the contract with Marilla, just so we can get them here in time to get that started. Streetscape improvements, we have the materials on hand to do the curbs, so we're ready to start that as soon as I get a price from Marilla and get that in front of you all to approve. And then we'll have a change order coming up for days for COVID and weather to get the date to that June 8th mark. I think currently by contract it's May 26th, but they've got days that they can add on to get to June 8th. Downtown Streetscape, I sent an email out Friday. I got their schedule on Thursday last week. I just was texting with the project manager for Pace Contracting just a few minutes ago. They're going to be here Thursday to start taking down trees. So it's here, it's starting. You see a rough schedule of when they'll be working where on Main Street in the next couple of months. So I made a little note down here at the last bullet point. Something they're going to be doing a little bit differently than we first discussed, and it's actually, I think it's going to be a benefit to us all, is due to lead times on pavers and curb, they're going to remove and replace the main pedestrian section of the sidewalk without removing the old curb. So, you remember the cross-section of the new streetscape. It's got your standard concrete walkway, pavers, and then curb. So they're just going to do the concrete first. They'll go all the way down Main and all the way back, and then come back around, remove the old curb, and put the new pavers and curb in. So it'll be 2 trips up and down Main. The good parts about that is that it keeps our parking in place while they're doing the first round. They won't be affecting the curb. And that also keeps the drainage in place. They won't have to worry about runoff during heavy rains getting on to the work that they're doing. They can use the existing curb to protect it. So I think it would just be less intrusive in general. They will be demolishing less of the area and putting it back. So it's going to extend the timeline a little bit from what we initially were trying to get Main Street, the hardscape of Main Street, done by the holidays. This is probably going to trickle over, but they're going to take a break during the holidays. But the good thing is by the holidays, we will have sidewalks in place in front of the businesses. So you'll be able to walk up and down Main Street and enter and exit the businesses. So in the long run, I think it actually might work out better. But it's just when we opened bids, we had the pre-construction, the first thing they said is we can't get pavers here in time to have them all down by the holidays. It's just not possible. So we talked about it some, and they came up with this plan, and I think it'll work out. We're communicating with businesses downtown best we can. We want to talk about some parking stuff in a later agenda item, but it's here. We're gonna work hard to make sure it goes well for our citizens and for our downtown businesses. And I think we got a really good contractor that's used to this kind of work and used to interacting with folks in this setting. So they've been really good to work with so far, and I think we're in good shape. Wayfinding signage. This is another one of those things I'm trying to push as hard as I can. I was on the phone last week with our consultant. KYTC changed their guidelines recently, so we had to go back through and update some things on our plans and resubmit the encroachment permit. It's in their court right now at KYTC. As soon as we get their approval, because we were going to go ahead and bid for signs, but then with the changes KYTC has been making, we want to make sure that they're good with what we have laid out before we put a bid out and get back bids we have to redo because they made changes. Stormwater program. We have the design done on the Streamland Phase 1. We're pretty much ready to bid that project, but I need to get easements. I've been out there a couple of times knocking on doors, trying to get a hold of folks. I have a little trouble with that. I've got help coming on board here in July that you all hired recently, and that's going to be one of those tasks I'm going to put them on pretty quickly to help me get those easements. Stormwater ordinance and manual updates. We passed the ordinances a couple months ago. Stormwater manual updates. Strand's working on that right now. We've had a couple meetings and about what our goals are with that, and they're going to bring me back some updates here pretty soon. We'll try to get that done this calendar year. Trail system. This summer we're going to work on the trail that's out at the industrial park between the industrial foundation land and the Coel farm. We've got about 3,000 feet of trail that we're going to build with current funding. And then the recreational trails grant application for Stanford Road has been awarded, so we're working on that right now. Palmer Engineering is developing the final plan, so we can send it off to KYTC for an encroachment permit on the project. And from all indications with the funding source, as soon as we get those plans done and the permit approved, we can ship that off to them and they can get us the funding. So that may be here sooner rather than later. I'm hoping later this summer we can get started on it. Cemeteries, working on the expansion. I think we're really close to having that complete. We need to get some more fence up, but we've got the decorative fence along First Street completed. I've got a picture of it there. If you get a chance to drive out and look at it, it looks great. We have a local metal company that has put that together for us. They did a great job. I anticipate late summer we'll have those lots available. And then communal shelters, have a little trouble with this one. We've gotten some concepts from our consultant, and I've looked at them with the cemetery committee a couple times, and just can't get a comfort level with it that we're ready to bring it to you all to look at. So actually, we're going to have our consultants coming down in July for their July meeting, and we're going to meet on site at Hilldale and talk about it and get it figured out so we can get a final design concept ready. We've been it's been difficult to get what the committee wants to see communicated to our consultants, so we'll work on that at the July meeting. And then parks update. I'm going to have a lot more information about parks at the July 11th meeting. I had a video call with them today. I want to get really good budget numbers for all of these projects to look at with you all and start prioritizing and see what we need to move on. I've communicated to them that their fees are starting. They called it fee fatigue is what they called it. I think they've experienced it before, and I think one way to help us with that is to see where this money is going towards the projects, the size of the projects. Once you all see that, you'll see that there's a lot of big work being done behind the scenes that they're working on. But real quickly, some of the things here, we're still working with the county schools to work on the agreement. They're working on the improvements to implement it, sprinklers, restrooms, flooring, drop-off area. We have removed all the asbestos floor tile from the classrooms, completed that a couple months ago. We're looking at putting some new flooring back in some of the classrooms that are staying over on the northern wing. And then Michael Smith, they're moving forward on the water play spray ground feature. They're working on the design of it to get ready to start construction this fall. But we're going to continue to get community input for the overall park plan. We put out a survey. We got some input on some different concepts. We don't feel like we've gotten enough input to feel good about the direction of the overall park plan. But I think we have time. We know approximately where this water feature is going to go, so we can move forward on it while we develop the overall park plan. And fairgrounds, tennis courts are the main discussion right now. We're trying to start moving dirt out there August 1st on it. That's really soon. So we're working with our consultant and their construction management team member, Turner Construction, is helping us put together multiple bid packages so we can get some of the smaller stuff out to bid quicker than the overall project, so we can make sure we get the playing surface installed before the winter, which we really need to do if we're going to actually play tennis on it in March of 2023. And then aquatics, we've had a lot of discussions about aquatics, but the consultant started to work on the preliminary engineering report for the wellness center site. And I think that is it for me. Do you all have any questions?
I've been approached by a couple businesses about the wayfinding signs. Are all the businesses going to be included in the approval from KYTC? Because some are feeling like they might not be included.
Yeah, we're going off of the master plan.
Okay.
We tweaked the design of the signs a little bit with the new logo, but as far as the businesses and everything, that I'm going off of that master plan that was approved in 2020, Earl, or early 2021, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2018. And then there was an addition at the end of 2019
Yeah,
of something.
Yeah,
too.
so we're going to work off of that and use that guidance to decide
Okay.
what businesses go on. That's what we've submitted to KYTC.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I'll let
I've had a couple businesses
those
reach out to me,
folks
and we're
know.
making sure that we're following that. That was adopted then.
Okay, thank you.
In reverse order, it was suggested to me that I've not seen them, certainly haven't played on them, but from tennis people suggested you might go out to the Danville Country Club and look at their new surfaces, which are artificial, cost more, but you don't have to repair cracks, from now till kingdom come, which is what'll wind up happening on typical.
Okay.
So you might look at that. Backing up here, on the cemetery, looking at the picture, that gate or that fence goes across the road that was cut in there.
Yes.
What's the plan?
There's a gate in that fence.
Okay?
And the plan right now is to keep that gate closed unless there's a funeral in that section. So, and then we were going to put bollards down at the cremation circle to keep that road closed during regular hours. That way we only had to build one road through and not do a turnaround. And we didn't want two entrances to the cemetery open all the time, but we're going to make that available when we have a service in there. They could pull, we'll take the bollards out, they could pull the procession in there, and then we could open that gate and let them out.
Has a design been submitted to the cemetery committee as the plots are laid out?
No, it hasn't yet. That's one of the things we got a preliminary one from our surveyor. I need to sit down with our staff and go over it from a numbering standpoint, just a layout, how we want to situate everything. And I think it'll be ready for the committee pretty soon.
I'll ask that you consider a columbarium in that, because clearly cremation is becoming a real significant trend. I think that's all I have. That's all I got.
So
Oh,
really-
well, one more thing, just remembered. So we talk about the agreement between the city and the county schools for child care. And as I recall, that was because Danville Independent said they would not be participating financially, is that correct?
Yeah, we met with them as well, and I just don't think they had a need at this time for that facility, and I think with the change over there too. I think we're going to try to revisit that once the new superintendent gets on board. and
Well,
see.
not only that, but the board chair's wife used to be the executive director when the child care center was out here on Lebanon Road. So there should be some understanding of the importance of that.
Does the superintendent not really come on board until the 1st? Or is he already here?
He's here.
I think he's here migrating through. We're giving him a minute, and then we'll circle back. We've mentioned this subject with him, and he's open-minded about discussing it.
What does it mean exactly, preliminary engineering report for the wellness center site? What does that mean?
So it's kind of taking it to a conceptual phase, fancy way of saying, I mean, I guess conceptual is fancy too, but it's just going to get us a actual conceptual design of the facility, get us more dialed in pricing on the project. And then also part of that is on, while our consultant's doing that, we have to work with the hospital to develop to see what that agreement's going to look like. We're trying to get to a point where we can all feel like we have the right information to make the decision to move forward or not. That's one of the things, you weren't here after we talked to the cemetery committee, to the Parks Committee, that they were all, yes, but we want to know more about how this agreement is going to work before we can fully endorse it. And I think that's where we want to get to. If we can have the cost, if we can have the agreement with the hospital more vetted, we can have a discussion about the final, what that partnership is going to look like and a final decision about it.
But we're comparing that to if we do it at the fairground.
Yes, we're trying to get information for both. So I have a geotechnical investigation coming soon that they're gonna look at both sites. They're coming down anyway to look at the tennis courts and baseball field sites, so they're gonna go to the wellness center site and where they would potentially go with the multipurpose field at the fairgrounds. They're gonna get samples at both locations. So we're gonna do things like that so that we are looking at both sites and have an ability to compare them.
Forgive me for not watching the last meeting, but the tennis courts, did we choose something there? I just can't remember.
We presented a conceptual design to you all a couple months ago, maybe or so.
Yeah.
It was that with the shade structures. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about next meeting. I got some initial budget numbers on that design, and we're not going to be able to, we can, but we probably shouldn't spend what those budget numbers came back at you know, the $6 to $8 million range for tennis courts. So yes, Kevin had the same look I had when they presented it to us at the Zoom call. So we're going to talk about what a realistic number is and how we get there. I think some of their budget numbers were a little overinflated for what we really wanted. So that's one of the things we talked about today was we had a real good conversation about what our expectations are for how we spend this money. To them, it may not seem like a lot of money, but to us it is. Like we have to make sure we get a lot of value for every dollar we spend, especially on these projects. So I'm trying to, with current bidding climate, it's hard they're scared to even set a budget on some of this stuff, but they're trying to do a good job of giving us realistic expectations about what these things are going to cost. But I think they overinflated that a little bit. So they're going to come back with something more in the $2 million range, which still blows my mind. When I told them before I saw those initial numbers, I was thinking $1 million at the most. But they're thinking lighting alone may be in the $600,000 to $1 million range. That's what the lighting's doing right now in the bidding
Are we
climate.
bidding into a situation where contractors are just full? And so therefore, they're in a place where they can ask for more?
I've heard a little bit of both. They're kind of thinking we may be transitioning right now to a situation where they're not as busy with prices going up like they have and interest rates that we're thinking we'll be able to find a little more competition amongst our contractors. When we had the pre-bid for the Public Works Garage, we had 7 general contractors there, which was a good amount. It wasn't mandatory. So that made me hopeful for how that bid will come back, that we get some good competition. I think right now, a lot of what's driving these prices up is just electrical and metal components. The materials are driving a lot of these costs up just from availability, supply and demand. So I think there is, tennis is one of those we talked about today. If we're talking about helping the schools just have somewhere to play next spring, we just need a surface and a fence and nets, and they can play on it next spring. They don't necessarily need lights. They don't need shade structures. So that's kind of our goal right now. It's okay, what do we need to do just to get us a playing surface ready? If we need to put the conduit in and the bases and get ready for lights in the future, maybe when these bidding climate gets a little more, gets better, we can look at it then. So that's kind of some of the stuff I'm having them think about, and they're supposed to get me a report here the next week or so that I'm going to have ready for that July 11th meeting, that we're going to go over these numbers in detail.
Okay.
So, obviously, these projects.
Only because you're important to us at
Thank you.
Center College.
Is that on? Just to support what Josh is saying, there's just major supply chain issues. So we've been talking about this at Center with the millions and millions of dollars worth of project we're working on. But some of it's not going away anytime soon. Electrical supplies, lighting, HVAC, and luckily none of these projects require structural steel because things like that are 66-week lead times. They used to be closer to 6. The one part is causing a full year delay for part of the Center project, so it's real. I think some of the stuff that Josh said will happen. Some of the competitiveness with construction firms will come back, but not on the supply side. These are, we've been dealing with people for a year and a half, and it's just not getting any better. It's actually gotten worse in the last 3 months. So, FYI.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
When it's
Well-
not just
Boy, you saved your bacon right there, Pat.
talk about too, it's just not just an issue with getting goods into the U.S. or anything like that. Regionally in Kentucky, and I've talked about this briefly, but we have a heavy demand for resources in our area resulting from some major development, economic development in Kentucky. You have many billions of dollars being invested in Kentucky right now. That is a drain on the resources in Kentucky, which are limited, right? And that's going to impact everything we do here for the next 2 or 3 years potentially. You're talking about $15 billion being spent down the I-65 to Louisville corridor. That's a lot, and we have to acknowledge that as we get into some of these things and figure out how to mitigate that.
So speaking realistically, with that situation, plus just general supply chain issue, Aren't we really saying maybe this doesn't get done for a while?
That was going to be my question, is
And I
can we
mean, if-
meet this at all?
Well,
There's things you can, there's things that you probably need to just think about how you do them and the organization of how you do them. For example, tennis courts is, if you eliminate the lights temporarily, that's highly dependent on local resources otherwise, other than the fencing. And so like, you just need to be strategic in what you're doing and engineering's got a hard task to figure some of those things out. And I don't know that, truthfully, Josh there's no way he can answer that right now. It's going to be one of those as we get into it. Each individual objective is going to have to be evaluated on how you execute it.
But I think it's fair to say the things have changed economically for not just the entire country, but this project in particular.
Yeah, I
And-
think, we talked about it with my meeting with the consultant today about, we just need to be thoughtful about every project we do. If it's, if we go look at a certain project and it's like, well, this is extremely high right now because of this one electrical material that we're having to buy. Well, let's wait on it. Because, in general, construction costs don't come back down, really. Like, they just always kind of tick up at some kind of pace, but right now it's really quickly. So, and that's, we were talking to some of our contractors at the pre-bid for the Public Works Garage. It's like, well, is this going to come back down? It's never happened before. Like, it kind of plateaus sometimes, but it never comes back down. So when you think about, when I think about like general construction costs, I don't see that just dropping 30% again next year. But there may be certain components that if we wait a little bit, the market kind of corrects a little bit and we can get something that we can see savings there. So it's like Earl said, when you talked about tennis courts, the playing surface, that's rock and asphalt. You move some dirt around, put down rock and asphalt, put a surface on it, you're good. Those materials they're not going to go back down. They haven't gone up very much. So let's look at that and move forward with that. And then you got to have a fence. So we try to be thoughtful about how we put the fence together and how we bid it out and the materials that we use. And make sure the big thing is just making sure it's material that's available. That's what we're seeing a lot of is, you could change one conduit from one type to another on a project and save $100,000 just because that one conduit is sitting on a yard somewhere and the other conduit's out of the country. So we just need to look at those things as we move forward and make sure that we're not just spending money just because we think we need to have this project right now, unless we do, like in the case of tennis courts, but really looking at every component and making sure it's the right way to spend that money at that time.
You will go look at that artificial surface, right?
Yeah. Animal Country Club. Yeah.
The cement is the biggest international issue.
Yeah.
There's a limitation on what was brought into the country, and that is impacting the market. There's a note that Marshall shared with us where some plants are restricting to 100 cubic yards a day. Is that right? Yeah. That's not a lot. So, it's a weird time.
That was going to be my next question.
Yep.
And the other reason I'm asking about if we chose any of the design elements or even the colors is because someone pointed out to me that if this is going to be Boyle County's home court, then it probably doesn't need to be blue.
Yeah, we brought that, I think, did we talk about that before? It's the city's logos. It's the city
I'm
logo
just-
colors. It's
yeah,
the
but
colors that we used.
I couldn't remember if we actually made a decision or not.
Yeah, I thought we talked about, I don't think there was a vote made, but we presented those colors
Yeah.
previously.
Typically, things like that, we would run through the Parks Committee to proof test them before they get too far.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay, the next item is yours, resolution number 2022-06-2701, downtown parking request.
Yeah, it was emailing and talking to Mary Conley at the Heart last week, and when we met with Bridget and Tony to talk about downtown parking during the project, one of the things that came out of that meeting was a letter or something to ask downtown business owners to have their employees not park on Main Street during the workday. actually sat down to type up a draft letter for you all to look at tonight, and I was like, well, I couldn't figure out who I was even addressing the letter to, other than just business owners, or we were going to send it out. So Bridget and I discussed it this afternoon, and we think this might work better as just to maybe a news flash on the website, just asking people to be courteous about how they park downtown during the project. I don't know if that even needs a vote from you all. We were bringing it forward to the agenda just because we thought we were going to do a letter, and we wanted the mayor's signature on the letter. But I don't know, if you all feel that a letter is more appropriate that we deliver to business owners, we can do that. But we were trying to make it a little bit easier on you all after discussing it today.
Well, I think we have a member of the parking committee in the corner. What does he say?
Kind of like Josh, it really doesn't matter, you know if it needs to be formal or not. In a letter or just information.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I would say, it seems to me like, regardless of what we do, it should be hand-delivered, more or less. I mean, to make sure.
Okay.
Like, we can't just assume that they're gonna look at the website or something. I think we need to give them something that they can refer to.
Hard and
That's
Danville
just my
was
idea.
acting as a liaison, sort of.
Who's that? I'm sorry.
Heart of Danville was acting as a liaison, correct?
Yes,
Well, they're the ones
yeah, I think,
requesting.
Mary, I think I could get the letter to the Heart and ask them to distribute it.
Yeah.
And I don't mind, I'm going to be building a close relationship to all our downtown businesses over the next few months, so I don't mind walking around and talking to folks about it either and making sure that they're
Yeah,
aware.
I think it definitely needs to be delivered with a face and a conversation.
Yeah.
Even if it's your face.
We'll take your face.
Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
Can I make another statement?
Yes.
I thought this was already supposed to be occurring out of courtesy for customers.
I think there's still some businesses that people are having issues with, and that's why they're asking for our,
And what happens? I mean, is this going to be enforced or?
no, there's no enforcement method. That's what Bridget and I discussed today. It's really just asking for courtesy.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2022062701.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cottle, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 6, resolution number 2022-06-27-02. This is a solid waste agreement. Continue on, sir.
Yes, this is an agreement between the city and the fiscal court that defines the services that are provided to the city by the solid waste department and the funding that the city will provide back. It's kind of the agreement we've had in place for many years, up until recently. I don't know if it'd been put into an agreement form like this before, but it's a budget of $45,000, which is already included in the fiscal year 23 budget that was approved. And it just talks about roadside litter collection, our ability to use the Alton Springs Convenience Center to dispose of limbs and different items like that.
Yeah, I think this is a very good thing.
Are you making a motion, sir?
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-06-2702.
Second.
Mr. Cottle, thanks. Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion? Is this the amount they asked for?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item
Thank you all.
7 is Municipal Order 06-2701-2022. This is the policies and procedure revision for fiscal year 23. Mr. Boyd.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get into the actual policies, I just want to take a minute and kind of talk about the methodology behind these policies. We had mentioned earlier in the year, part of our goal was to do a review of our handbook, and this is really phase 1 of that. It's really a two-part evaluation. One is looking at benefits and some of our policies that we want to enhance. Part 2 of that is a legal update, which we're currently working with Sturgill Turner on that, which we'll have more on that to come probably later at the end of this year. So we've talked a lot about compensation over the last probably year and a half, 2 years. So with that, part of the second phase is when we talk about recruitment and retention of a high-quality workforce. It's not only compensation, but it's also all our ancillary policies that have an impact on that. So this is what we're going to kind of go through here, because that was part of our strategy with this. And this really started with management workshops. So this is just not myself, city manager, looking at the policies. We've actually had all of our department heads look at it. And that way we make sure that these policies are positively impacted on all the stakeholders in the city, which really is our total full-time workforce. Okay. So we got a lot of language here, so I'm going to try to summarize these policies as I go through this. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me and I'll kind of expand on any particular points you want to discuss. So first policy we have here is a pretty simple policy. It's categories of employment. Essentially, I've got it outlined here, the changes, and the changes here we're recommending is that we classify employees under our plan as full-time employees when they reach 30 hours or more. That's the definition of full-time. Under the old policy, it was 35 hours. The reason we changed it to 30 is to align with the Affordable Care Act and also make sure that we align with KPPA requirements when it comes to definition of full-time under the hours worked. And so that is what we're recommending on that categories of employment policy. Okay. All right. Next one we have here is implications of reclassification. Now, this actually ties into a lot of the things that we've done with compensation over the last year and a half. Essentially, under the city's old policy, when you moved from one grade to another, whether it's a higher grade or a lower grade, the language was that you would move into that grade with what's called a 5% adjustment. What we're recommending to, and we've talked a lot about this with our compensation to establish pay equity, where we had defined the experience-based scales, we're recommending that the policy aligns with that. And essentially what that means is when an employee, for example, if they get promoted from one grade to a higher grade, that they go into that new grade, their experience is applied to that new grading scale, and it tells you what that salary should be. And that is a defined, objective method that would be an established pay equity within the city based on our, especially with all of our compensation changes that we've had. Okay. All right. Now, this next policy is one that we've worked on for quite a while, and we think this is a really key policy. So there's a lot of language in this. This is our vacation and sick leave policies. Currently, the city's policy right now is set up on an accrual basis. So what that means is you basically, as a new employee, when you come in, or really any employee, you accrue time every year. You have different accruals for vacation and for sick leave. And really what we're recommending here is there's two things here. Right now, the city for non-safety, or what we call non-hazardous personnel, they're set up on 10-year tiers, meaning you go from years 1 to 10 on the same accrual, and then years 10 to 20. Well, we're recommending going to 5-year accruals. That's more in line with what a lot of employers are doing right now. We also want to make sure that that's a good recruitment retention tool for the city. And we talked about this a lot through the budget process, that, that first 5 years is really critical to retain an employee. Usually if the employee's here 5 years, they're typically you've got a pretty high percentage that employee is going to be committed to the city from there on out. Now, the other thing here too is on safety personnel. As you look here, we've changed those hours as well. Those are on 10-year tiers. Reason for that is because of the way the retirement system is for hazardous duty. But also, we're asking that to align communications or the dispatch center to be more equal to or peers to the police department. We're recommending that they go under the same vacation tier as the police department. And then, of course, the fire department, their tiers will stay the same. Now, the big change here is we're recommending going to allotments. So what that means is instead of accruing time as you progress through the year, July 1st of each year, you're going to get your bucket of time July 1st, and then you have that for the whole year. Now, what we do also, one of the things that we had to factor in when we talked about allotments is how does that impact new employees and also employees that would leave throughout the year. Basically, if you're hired within the year, it's a prorated allotment. So, for example, if you're hired in the first quarter of the year as a new employee, you'll get the full allotment, but if you're hired, say, the second quarter, you get 50%, and so on, and it's tiered down. It's the same thing when you leave the city. We did not change the payout tiers because we thought those were really, really good policies. We didn't change anything with the sellbacks. But basically what that means is, for example, if an employee leaves the city, say you give them their new bucketed time July 1st, they leave August 1st, they would only get 25% of that tier. If they leave at the end of the year, they get the full amount. But I've got the schedule laid out here. Without getting into details, it just basically tiers at 25% each quarter. Now, that doesn't impact their previous year's amount. It doesn't impact anything that the employees currently have. It essentially, what it does is you're giving the employees all their time up front, allow them to manage it throughout the year. One thing that I think that's really beneficial on this policy is, and I go back to the sick time, and we talked about this, I think, through the budget process. So, for example, if we hire somebody, an employee, we invest time in them, they've invested in committing to the city, let's say 3 months into their employment, they have a catastrophic medical event, whether it's for themselves, their family members, they don't have time to take off. By establishing this policy, you're giving them that time to protect them, as opposed to having them accrue all that time throughout the whole calendar year. I know it's a lot of information, but we feel like this is a good tool. Two things here is really going to 5-year tiers. It allows us to be more competitive in the market, recruiting and retaining employees. And then also going to an allotments, it allows us to provide more protections to those individual employees. And then, part of this too, is we talk about health and well-being. It's not to enrich financial gains to employees. It's to establish a better work-life balance by giving them more time and allowing them to take time off. Because, as we all know, a happy, healthy employee is also a productive employee, which benefits the city and the community. Okay.
Randy, one more thing on that real quick. The allotment concept, if we're getting a lateral hire, a certified officer, for example, from another agency, a lot of times they're giving up a balance of vacation and sick time, and this enables them more quickly to have a stockpile, assuming they're not entering the workforce, that is a little bit of an advantage to communicate to those potential hires. Go ahead, Randy.
No, actually, Earl, that's a really good point. And as I've sat down with new employees over time, and we've presented them with their offer letters, that has been wrong. Probably the one struggle point that we've had with employees is the vacation and sick time. When we present to them that, they've got to accrue their time. We've had a couple of candidates that we were able to recruit, but they had reservations of coming on board because they told me just that they were losing a lot of time, and it would take them time to build that back up. So we feel like this is just a positive for the workforce as a whole because, really at this point, we've talked about compensation. Now it's time for us to really look at other benefits of what we call the total compensation package, which is this would be part of that.
So maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but I did the math. On the non-public safety annual vacation allotment, it starts out at 80 hours for year 1 through 4. But then it jumps 32 hours and not 40 hours. So you're not getting a whole week, you're getting 4 days.
Well, and that is correct. What we wanted to do is we wanted to keep the cap at 160 that's currently there for 20-plus employees. And so we took that and split in equal increments between those tiers. So you start at 80 and you get to your cap of 160. So we did it in those tiers and make sure that's equally divided up until you hit that 160 max. Because by the time that you get to 160 hours, that's 4 weeks a year. It's going to be really difficult to take more than 4 weeks a year off.
Right, but the increments are 32 hours on the
Correct.
middle tiers and not 40.
That is correct. Yep.
That
So
just
we-
doesn't
so
really
we
make
did-
sense.
yeah. We did
Sorry.
that because to keep to that 160, so it balances equally through.
I would think it would be in 40-hour increments.
Yeah, a lot of other entities that we looked at had odd steps like that. You got to keep in mind, a lot of people will take a single vacation day and not a full week.
Yeah.
But it does provide growth or expansion of the benefit over time. And so it was just tried to be a uniform increase
Yep.
as they progress through their career and not not just trying to get to round numbers. But again, a lot of entities that had a similar structure had odd steps like that. That's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Yeah. At first, we struggled, we talked a lot
We
about
did,
that as a
yeah.
management team.
That was hard for me to process.
It was
Yeah.
at first,
Yeah.
yeah, it was. And, you know, the other part is that where we have the rollover provision, which a lot of employers, you know, that's one thing that's really beneficial to the city is some employers have caps, you know, a use it or lose it program. With that, that helps here too, because obviously you roll over what you had from the prior year. And,
So they can roll their vacation days over? Okay.
yeah.
I
they
didn't
can-
realize that.
Yes, they do. And same thing with sick time. But really where it's applicable is those new employees, which obviously when we're recruiting off the street, this is, you know, we're trying to attract and we've talked about it, building future growth, but it's also to at the same time, reward your seasoned employees through like giving them more time. And we hope that people will take more time off, to be honest with you, because I look at time, we don't do it. Our employees are committed to the city. They, you know, kudos to them. They don't take as much time. But I think with us increasing our staffing in some of our departments, as well as changing some of these things, it'll help us have that better work-life balance, which really is the goal of this program. That and also protecting employees in those catastrophic, unplanned, you know, medical events that come up.
Yeah, I never had thought about it till you and I talked about getting all the vacation time front-end loaded.
Yeah.
I was talking to some young folks who, I think they were all center grads that were recruited by different kinds of industries, and they're all doing that now. I made a point to ask, you know,
Yeah.
but, you know, apparently that's the thing, so we got to
Yeah.
do what the market's doing.
Well, and that's exactly it. I was, you know, we've got to adapt to the market. You know, we got to keep looking at it. And then, you know, part of this too is when we give this time, you know, they, like I said, it's a recruiting tool and it just protects the employees, you know, and allows us to continue to recruit high-quality people to the city.
I like the shift towards the front load of front end of your career too. That comes at a time where a lot of employees are having kids.
Right.
Gives you a better opportunity to be, I know, you know, just myself, for example, when I was having kids early on, you know, I just got 2 weeks a year, so I really struggled
Yeah.
to spend what you would want to time-wise when you're young, and then when you're on the backside of your 20-plus years and you get vacation time, you know, they've graduated high school and you're trying to figure out how in the world
Yeah.
do I even take off work, right? Like, so
Well-
to me, that is a strategic benefit. I really, that's the way I view that.
Yeah,
And like he said, everyone negotiates their time off now at every level.
Yep.
It's not just for upper levels anymore, so.
Well, and you know, it's, like, if you look at it on a practical standpoint, let's say you hire somebody January 1st, they don't get their full 80 hours until December 31st. So that's a whole year before they even get 2 weeks of time. And so it kind of taxes you in that first 1 to 2 years, it really does. And, you know, in that first year of employment, especially if you're in a key position, it takes a lot of time to adjust to a
Right.
job, there's a lot of stress. Giving them folks that time allows them to really, you know, hit the reset button.
Thank you, Randy.
So, and this actually ties into the next policy I've got for you is the retirement policy.
Do we need to, do we have more than one municipal order, or is this all on the same one?
It's all one policy,
all
so it's
one.
one
Okay.
one
Yeah.
municipal order.
Just want to make sure we didn't need to vote.
No. Yeah, it'd be one revision to the personnel policy handbook. So the other part of this too is the retirement, and we took a look at this, and I talked to KLC about this a little bit too, is currently under the city's policy, when you hire a new employee, we do have a 6-month probationary period for non-hazardous employees and a 12-month probationary period for hazardous duty. The probationary periods, we do want to keep those intact, but under the city's policy, it basically stated that when you hire, until you complete your probationary period, you do not go into the CRS retirement system. A couple things that we found that is a challenge with that is one, it's, again, it goes back to a recruitment retention tool. You're not giving them the full scope of benefits. Two, especially for hazardous duty employees, if you hire someone, let's say you hire a police officer recruit, they're in probation for 12 months, even when they come out of the academy, they may come out, if we hire them, they go in day one, depending on their, their schedule. They're out performing hazardous duty functions, but they're not getting hazardous duty benefits. And, fortunately, if they have someone's killed in line of duty, the KPPA has survivor benefits, but they don't have a benefit if they're not part of the retirement. The other part of this, too, is making sure we're consistent with the administration of when employees go into the retirement system. If you hire somebody, they go in day one, you're ensured that you're putting them in timely, they're getting their contributions. And so, long story short, is we're recommending changing the policy that when an employee is hired, all full-time employees go into the retirement system date of hire.
Do you need a motion?
We do.
I will move for approval of municipal order number 0627012022.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 8, resolution number 2022-06-27-03. This is the authorized positions list proposal for fiscal year 23. Mr. Boyd, continue.
All right, thank you, Mayor. What you have in front of you is the recommendation for the authorized positions by fund for fiscal year 23. Just to recap, fiscal year 22, we had authorized 166 full-time positions. For fiscal year 23, the proposal is 172 positions. That's an addition of 6 positions, and those 6 positions are the ones that we discussed through the budget process, which included the addition of the community liaison, 1 police officer, two firefighters, and the addition of a Parks and Recreation maintenance worker. So that's where the additional headcount comes through. And so what I'll do is I'll just go through and summarize by the fund, the headcount, and if you have any questions, please, let me know. So currently you have, in fiscal year 22, you have 6 positions in legislative. With some changes, we're recommending that headcount would go to 9 positions. Finance, you have 7 positions. Currently, that would go to 6 positions. Just to clarify, that is not a reduction in staff. Actually, that is, you're reallocating 1 finance position over to legislative and then adding 2 new positions into the legislative budget. IT stays flat with 4 positions. As I mentioned earlier, police would go from 39 to 40 with the addition of 1 new police officer. Fire would go from 29 to 31 authorized jobs. That's the addition of the two firefighters mentioned earlier. Communications stays with 14, codes 3, public works 8, stormwater stays at 4, cemetery stays with 2. Utility administration, it would actually go from 9 positions to 10. That is not a creation of a new position. Rather, it's a reallocation from water distribution. Water distribution will go from 10 to 9, with that position being reallocated to utility admin. All other utility funds would all stay the same as prior year with fiscal year 22. The only other change there would be through Parks and Recreation, which would go from 7 authorized full-time positions to 8, which is the addition of the maintenance worker position mentioned earlier. And within each department, you've got an underline here of the job creations. Most of these are through the reclassification and the job additions that we discussed through the budgeting process. I'm more than happy to go through those in detail if you like, but that's a summary of the authorized position list.
I just had a question under utility administration.
Yes.
Executive assistant is 0 for 2023. Is that one of the ones that just got moved?
It is. The person that has filled that position is being reclassified as the utility billing manager, but that position is still part of our compensation classification plan. We didn't eliminate the job, we just didn't budget for that additional headcount for fiscal year '23.
So are they basically doing the same thing?
No, it's a reclassification, a completely different position. This will actually be taken into a supervisory role, oversight of all utility billing for city. It's a completely classified job position.
Okay. Well, we created those jobs a few years ago, correct? And now we're not going to fill that one?
Not in the current budget cycle. That's something Marshall and I have discussed, but once this position is reclassified, then it'll be probably a reassessment throughout the year for utility based on what he feels like his needs are once he gets a chance to look at the restructure in the utility billing department.
Okay.
Yeah, with the utility admin, he's functioning a little bit, and since he's not near Mike, I'll talk to him. He's functioning a little bit differently than we had originally. And so he's, this is the direction he feels like it better coordinates his activities.
Yep. And we'll look at that as in the next agenda, we've got the compensation plan, and you'll see that we've kept that position in the comp plan for future, to be filled in the future as needed. We didn't eliminate the position. So I just want to clarify, we did not eliminate the position. We just didn't budget for that in this budget cycle.
Okay.
All right. So that is a summary of the authorized position list. If you have any other questions, be happy to answer those.
So we're looking at adding one more policeman to the force, right?
Yes, sir, and 2 firefighters.
Yeah,
And-
good.
And we're currently recruiting for those positions as we speak.
Good.
So you're adding 3 total safety personnel in the budget for this cycle.
Need a motion for this resolution, please?
But no grant writer, correct? Are we still talking about that?
Yep.
Grant writer?
No, it was not added for this budget. No.
We can certainly continue to talk about
Yeah.
that when we come back together, but it is not currently in the budget.
And also, and like I said, I know we looked at last year's budget. We did 2 budget amendments on authorized positions mid-year last year, so this is a fluid working document as we evaluate the workforce and just, so we can always come back to that.
Yeah, I don't think that grant writer concept's going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well, I move for approval of, where am I? Resolution 2022-062703.
Mr. Cottle, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Terry, any discussion?
That wasn't very heartfelt. Do it again.
No
Second.
further discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item 9 is a first reading of ordinance number 1995. This is the common class plan for fiscal year '23. Mr. Boyd.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So on this one, this is a complete redo of the compensation plan, and so we want to take just a quick second to talk about the methodology behind that. So the goal of the compensation plan was obviously to align the grading scales and with the creation of new positions, some of the organizational restructuring that we've done, but also we talked about this when we established the compensation plan, that we needed to establish a more well-defined grading system, essentially where we had similarly situated positions that were on the similar grading scales. So we always use the example, and I don't mean to pick on any department, but for example, we had utility jobs classified in the same grading as, say, a finance position. Well, we know those are 2 different values on the market. And when we did the compensation study, that was actually one of probably the biggest challenges for us, was trying to delineate some of those positions out in the comp study to make sure that they were clean and segregated. So with that being said, what we've done, we've come back and we've split out the grading system. So now you have a grading system proposal in front of you for all non-hazardous jobs. You have a separate grading system for utilities because it's its own special industry, obviously. We also still have the same grading scale for the police department and the fire department and Parks and Recreation as we did in the prior plan. Another key part of this too is we talked about communications. And I mentioned that earlier through the vacation process, that communications is really its own unique, obviously, industry as well, career path. And so we're recommending splitting that out into its own grading scale, similar to the way the police is. And what this does, this helps us continue to evaluate the market cleanly and making sure that we can easily compare our jobs against the market whenever we do a study. We talked about, when we look at year 3, we're going to go in this November and work on, doing another evaluation of the market. And by having this structure, it helps us cleanly look at those items. And so I'll just take a quick second and just kind of run through the departments. And we've highlighted the jobs here and and a lot of these jobs that are highlighted are the same ones we just mentioned in the prior document about the reclass and job addition. So if you look at administration, you can see you've got a defined non-hazardous scale here. We've added the community liaison position. We've also talked about the reclassification of one position to the HR clerk, and then, of course, the administrative assistant. And then within the finance department, we priorly had an administrative assistant. That position goes away in the comp plan because that's being reallocated to legislative. And then we had two individuals holding the role of what was called data entry clerk. Those have a little bit of a different job descriptions. I talked to Lee quite a bit about that, and so they're same grading, but they're going to be different job titles as finance clerk and collections clerk to really align with their job duties. And that's actually another important part of this too, is that when we talk about the compensation plan, we want to make sure we have good defined job descriptions of what really their functions are, because when we go out and look at the market, those job descriptions are key for us to look at determining what those values are in the market, and this helps us. This is the first step in that process. No changes in codes enforcement, that is, other than the non-hazardous grading. Public Works, there's no changes there. Cemetery, we're still maintaining 2 positions, but we added equipment operator to that, and the reason we did that is because prior compensation plan, we had a maintenance worker, but this allows you the ability to hire someone with a higher skill set if they fit into one of those roles. So you got 4 classifications that one position could fit into if you had someone that could bring a higher skill set to the city. IT department, the only change there is we're recommending renaming the network technician to IT technician. Those some conversations Nick and I had, and again, that goes back to aligning those job titles with the appropriate job duties. No changes for stormwater or the police department or the fire department. Communications, and you'll see on the grading scale, we've recommended its own standalone grading scale for communications. And then Parks and Recreation, just adding the 1 maintenance worker position that we mentioned prior. And then the changes that we discussed for utility administration, which is the utility billing manager, utility specialist. Again, that's not an increased headcount, that's just reclassification of some positions into those roles. Now, within utilities, the only change you'll see there is we've made a change to job title. We priorly had maintenance worker, which was the same classification for the maintenance worker positions you have in Parks and Recreation, Public Works. It's a different type of position, totally different type of job responsibilities. And so what we asked for is that we set up a standalone maintenance technician classification, the 1 and 2 levels for each department within utilities. Okay. And then on the back page here, of course, you've got your scales. Another thing that's really important that we keep in mind is each year as we continue to progress through the market study, these values may change. So each year when we look at these scales, we'll have to reassess those each year depending on what compensation plans look like, in the proposed budget. But what's really important about this is we've set these in a chronological order. We've got similarly situated jobs that are valued similarly on the market within these the same scale, especially on the non-hazardous classification, because you've got a lot of positions in that. And then also those positions were really considered top to bottom based on the overall organizational chart for the city as well. Well, there's a lot of information in a short amount of time, but We feel like this is going the right direction with establishing a structured system moving forward based on our goals that we've talked about over the last year and a half.
Chair will entertain a motion for the first reading of ordinance number 1995.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion? Comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
We have to roll call.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. I'm sitting here going, you know what, it's almost, look where we are. Mr. City Manager, just because the days are longer doesn't mean the agenda has to get longer.
This is the first reading of ordinance number 1995 and ordinance amending CDO 2-96 pertaining to the classification plan, compensation plan, and policies and procedures for city personnel. Commissioner Cottle?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Mayor Paris?
Yes.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes.
Item number 10 is the second reading of ordinance number 1993, alcohol regulatory fee.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
We're requesting a
can
break.
we take our first time out?
Certainly. Do I have a choice? No.
No.
Not really, no. You're gonna lose a quorum here real quick.
Time out. Everybody, take a break.
Thank you.
is ordinance number 1993, alcohol regulatory fee. Who's leading that conversation? Or do we just simply need Ashley to call it?
Oh, you need a motion. I'll make a motion. I'll move for approval of ordinance number 1993.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Ma'am,
Couldn't tell if that was an 8 or 9.
further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1993, an ordinance establishing the regulatory license fee for the sale of alcoholic beverages in the city of Danville for fiscal year 2022-2023. Commissioner Terry?
Thank you. Yes.
Mayor Paris?
Yes.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes.
Commissioner Cottle?
Yes.
Item number 11, second reading of ordinance number 1994. This is for the fiscal year 2023 budget. You hear a motion? No motion?
No?
No, wait a second.
We're still trying to find our
But I do have some questions, so.
I make a motion to approve second reading ordinance number 1994.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. We are in discussion.
Now, I have a presentation that was complementing the continuation of the budget letter development that should be on your desk now. Do you want to go through those slides, or do you want to address your questions first?
Go ahead, because you might answer my questions.
Okay. So we initially sent you, before the first reading, essentially the executive summary off of the budget book that we're building. That sheet has changed some. That's about the first 5 or 6 pages of that packet that we laid on your desk. Go ahead, Anthony, and turn the slide on, if you will. The other sheets after that are attachments to it. We get into several discussions and including debt service, the capital expenditure summary, and the debt service report. We have all those done, including all the debt issuances that we have historically. So all those are in this packet. We'll flip through those real quick. First thing is the trends on property tax. So what we talk about in the attachment is the base revenues are set at $19,352,710 for just the general fund operating expenses, compared to $19,058,061 for last year's operating revenue, base operating revenue. So what we've done is taken that a step farther and looked at the property taxes. You'll see on the screen the trend for property taxes. The table is also in your handout. We put it on the screen for the audience for their consumption. You have essentially from FY18, FY19, which is when the COVID impact really hit. You'll see that roll out a little bit into the next cycle on the license and fees, which is immediately to your right on the screen. But on the next page on your handout, property taxes into 20 begin to recover, and 21 were fully recovered. We have the estimated year end based on the timing. It looks the way we do that estimate is just strictly based on the percent of year, essentially. We do expect that to be closer to FY21's number by the time we get to the end of the year, but we'll see. The projected revenue for FY23 is based on the compensating rate, which is essentially a tax reduction for the rate applied. The change in revenue is strictly on addition to the assessed value. We are projecting the property tax revenue then to climb from $2,150,000 to $2,190,000. On occupational taxes, that is where and license and fees is where the bulk of the city's general fund revenue comes from. As you can see on the screen and then on your handout too, there was a significant dip in those with COVID as that pandemic rolled through our community. The Revenue at the beginning of FY '22 appeared to have fully gotten to the 90% mark on recovered, and we are projecting that to continue that trend as time goes forward. Now, when we say that, everything we're doing is coming to where we're at today based on what we've seen, right? Moving forward, though, we have to acknowledge that inflation is different, and that we do have that looming, and we also have looming the the overall view that there could potentially be a recession at some point in the future. And so we are considering that in our text, and as you read through that in the next couple of days, you'll see that we talk about the reaction to that in several different ways. One of which is frankly the compensation plan, which we've got numbers and charts in here for that. We are not suggesting that you go into the next fiscal year's budget process assuming you're going to do that compensation adjustment, and we want to make sure we talk about that publicly. We want to pause on that as we talk until we see how the economy reacts through the remainder of the calendar year and the beginning of next year. So just understand that as staff, we are going into it with that mindset, and understand that the commission has made a significant investment in the compensation, which we will show. But I want to talk about that on revenue slides. We are predicting the trend with where we're at to continue to be a positive variance. However, we have to acknowledge that inflation and also a potential recession could impact that negatively. And so we have to be mentally prepared to react to that. And staff is, we just want to assure you that as we get into it. Then we get into the next slide. I guess I have to do this, is the utility revenue. The utility revenue is a little bit less volatile, but is stable. It is increasing slightly. A lot of that is driven by just the overall demand increase. There has been minor COLA adjustments over the years that's cooked into the DLG's numbers. We would like to mention to you this year that the COLA increase that we got out of Frankfurt was 7%. And so that is going to hit, everyone will notice that this year. A lot of times that percentage can be as low as 0. It is trends about 0.5 to 1.5% over time. But like I said, this year, that is an actual that's a good number. And so that is cooked in by ordinance. Staff is suggesting that you take that because of some impacts to the operating expenses for the utility. The inflation number most impacts that fund, from material access to lead times. I know I mentioned this in text, but I know that Marshall and the guys in water distribution have done a good job predicting that struggle for materials. Right now, our operations has not been impacted negatively by the availability of materials. That is possible. And so what we're trying to do is position ourselves to mitigate that possibility. Some things that can happen if you aren't able to get repair material, for example, in a timely fashion, you could have extended periods of leaks of non-revenue water, which could alter both your revenue and your expenses. So there's a lot of things to consider there when we're talking about supply chain deficiencies, but those are real. And so we are trying to react to that and understand that. Going forward into your handout is we talk about the expenditure priorities a little bit. The number one biggest investment change over the last 3 years has been the investment in the compensation plan. That was talked about for a couple years coming into the last 2 budget cycles. We actually picked that up and went ahead and have worked, give Randy a lot of credit and staff a lot of credit for implementing that in an efficient way. We fortunately are in front of a lot of other communities. Fortunately for the timing for the city of Danville, our compensation adjustment has happened over more than 1 year. It has happened, we've tried to program it into 3 years, so we have had some adjustment. What you're seeing in the market now is a lot of communities and entities are reacting by just throwing lump sums of money at it. I would argue that our approach in Danville has been, and not just me, but as a team and as a community, our approach has been a lot more methodical than that. It has been pieced in over time and has therefore not necessarily impacted the budget in the way that it will in other places if the inflation continues or begins to unhealthily impact the revenue stream, or the recession comes into play and negatively impacts the revenue stream. So the top left on the screen is the FY21 labors on the right column. You'll see that the red, the middle is bigger, and then this year's the step two. So you can see the difference between the first column and the last column really represents the full variation in your labor investment, which is a move from about $12.5 million to right at $18 million in total employee compensation benefit plan. That includes everything from new positions, that includes all the various reclassifications, the experience-based pay adjustments, that includes your market study analysis, the vacation movement that was included or just approved earlier on the agenda. That total impact is moving the total investment of compensation from 12.5 again to roughly $18 million in a fiscal year. That includes all in cost, including healthcare, right? So that is a big change, which is why we want to make sure that you all know that we will intentionally go through that process next budget cycle a little bit more methodically to make sure that if the last step can be funded, that it is the correct step, and that it hopefully will bridge the gap for a while, right?
Inflation almost canceled us out this time, right?
Inflation canceled you out this time almost entirely, yeah. So, but again, ours were planned, ours was budgeted, unlike a lot of other places that I know there was a couple of different entities that we saw that added, for example, just a lump sum to hazardous duty. Well, you know, what does that actually mean? And what ours was not like that. And so I give Randy a lot of credit and staff a lot of credit for walking through various scenarios. So the bottom right image is the personnel cost by really function. You have public safety. The utility is on the right in light green or green, and it looks like gray on the screen. In the middle column are really everything else you do, whether it be public works, finance, legislative, community, anything other than the utility and public safety. So obviously, public safety is the biggest chunk of your payroll expenses, and as you can see, it's had the biggest increase over the last 3 years. A lot of the investment has been directly into the public safety sector of our operations. And I think our turnover and I think our staff understand that, and I think they, as individuals, appreciate that as expressed to me, but I think they are working hard to make sure that is earned and that they appreciate that. I want to make sure we communicate that effectively.
And that's our number one function, really, is public safety, so.
Correct.
It stands to reason it'd be the most expensive.
It's most expensive, and it has had the biggest increase in investment by far. The next thing is just your overall department expenses, including all your operating expenses for your core operations of the city. Each department is labeled at the bottom. You got fire, police. The police is the top line in blue. The fire is the second line in green. As you can see, all departments have gone up with the investment in payroll. The biggest jump has been in the police and fire, as evidenced by the chart. Kevin, you had mentioned wanting to see this updated, and so this was our effort to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. The next one is focused on the year we're in, which is the year being proposed. This is a wheel breakout of trying to demonstrate graphically the amount of investment in each department by function. So the police and fire represent a large chunk of the city's overall budget. Public services, non-departmental, which is your operating transfers into your various other funds, such as Parks and Recreation, Streetscape, then those 3-4 things represent about 2/3 of the city's budget. Graphically, at the minimum, we can observe that, and certainly would welcome any questions tied to this chart or any others. Would add that communications is over there on the far left and could be aligned. It was aligned over there automatically, but really, we consider that part of the police and fire system. So that's the last slide I had. However, on your packet, as we continue to build, we have some sheets there that related to the capital expenditures. We broke it out into projects, but also category. So you have vehicles, equipment, for example, infrastructure, buildings, lands, and improvements. So we tried to break those out into that standard category. And we have that for all of your major funds. As you go through, you'll see the general fund, Parks and Rec, the utility fund. The utility fund, as we look at that on the second sheet of those, and this isn't page numbered, I'm sorry, it's a draft still, as we continue to add text to it. The utility fund, for example, the sewer plant, you can see there how that is categorized as facility development buildings at the sewer plant, the project that we have left funded there. You can see the $11 million left on that project. That is in the budget. The total for that project is pushed out over there on the far right. And so you can see, or the total for that category, I guess. So you get a total for each fund. The utility fund this year is investing $21,499,125 in infrastructure, for example. Does everyone understand how those tables work then? Moving on to the 2 pages later, you'll have a debt service debt summary report. It's the next page with actual text. And I didn't have time to put all of these on a slide, so we will save that for next time. As like I said, now that we have the compensation plan and your employee chart, there's other tables we will add to this budget book. Debt summary report, you'll have a debt capacity calculation, the first paragraph of that. We are looking at the 21 assessment. The city overall, the total assessed value is $1,357,631,928. The maximum debt capacity at 10%, which is your statutory debt limit, is $135,763,193. The outstanding debt subject to the legal capacity is $43 million. As of 6/30/21 was $43,053,214. So the city is well below its statutory debt limit. And then following this is a brief summary of some other communities that we honestly randomly picked for different reasons that we feel like are economically comparable to us, not necessarily population-wise. So when you look at, for example, Henderson at a population of 27,000, we compare to them because of the utility demand, for example, that makes them a better comparison for us. And so you'll see the average aggregate debt, which is the right column for each one of those communities. The total debt, when you count the utility in, is $95,743,872 for the city. $66 million of that roughly, I want to say roughly $67 million of that is utility debt. So you go right below that, you have the city of Richmond. They currently have very little general fund debt. They have about $75 million in utility debt. Their utility is the next larger utility in the Bluegrass area development than ours. So we're very comparable to them. They're sitting on about $10 more million in debt against the utility. However, they are facing, and I put this footnote there, they're getting ready to invest a significant sum of money through a debt issuance to a park development project on the west side of their community, west side of the interstate. I forget the name of their proposed park, but that's our understanding. It's in the $30 million range, unless I misunderstood. The other utility or other entities that are listed there that have lower debt don't have the utility debt in that column. So it's not known, it was not easily discoverable in the three that we footnoted, Frankfort, Bardstown, and Georgetown, what the utility debt is there. We know that Frankfort is slightly bigger than Richmond. They have power, they have electricity, and cable, for example. So we would anticipate their debt being at minimum commensurate to Richmond's. So you'll see then, they're probably, the total debt inside of that footprint is probably closer to Hopkinsville if we really understood the utility debt for them. So we footnoted those three communities, but also we wanted to show you what larger communities also were doing. Owensboro, population 60,000, has $136 million in debt, and they are paying a yearly debt service of about $13.4 million. So hopefully that table gives you a little bit of context to just think about as we go through time. If you have any questions, please shoot them back. You have the full debt schedule behind this for all the bond issuances we have. What I'd like to do is add a little bit of narrative to each debt issuance to demonstrate the purpose of it. For example, the water plant is in there. It's KLC financing and it's revenue bonds. I won't try to find them since it's not page numbered, but it is page 6, for example. Those are two of your water plant. These are numbered. Those are two of your water plant bonds, for example. So we'll add a little bit of narrative to each one of these bond issuances so that you can understand what they're for, and we will continue to populate this. So this is a start. This is what we're building into the budget book. We hope to have it done now with the compensation and changes and things that you all have approved tonight. We will finish this book by the next meeting and try to have it ready for your hands. You do need a second read of the budget tonight, yes, sir. The budget's not changing. We're filling in information for you in the budget book that we're creating to explain what's in the budget better for the general consumption over the course of the year.
So, I can't remember, do we have a motion?
Yes.
So, discussion on, any further discussion on the budget?
I wanted to know where we landed on economic development.
You have $200,000, I don't have that right in front of me, $200,000 to distribute right now, and certainly if you want to add more to that as the budget season, as a demand picks up, you can. And certainly there was a lot of dialogue about what to do with that, and we didn't try to dictate where that went or what we will bring that up to you before any distribution is made from that towards either your Economic Development Corporation, your EDA, wherever you want to delineate that into, we'll do that.
Well, I said this at another meeting, and I don't think Mr. Dexter was there, so maybe he can help me clarify this. We are by ordinance, we have agreed to fund the EDA equally with the county. And that number, their number is 200,000.
So in talking to the county judge, they did the same thing that I just proposed. They indicated to me that while they thought at the time it would likely go to the EDA, they had a lump sum that they can distribute whatever direction they needed to as we settle out on the bylaws for the Development Corporation, which are underway, being developed. The EDA met today. The EDA still has to develop its bylaws. The EDA doesn't have a budget yet. The Development Corporation has made through the EDP, a budget proposal. So until that sorts out, I think leaving it as a lump sum, letting that finish, the EDP has funds on hand that they can bridge the gap between now and really the first quarter probably. And so let's let those bylaws be developed and let those entities then become operational. The EDP still, they have not advertised for a position. There's things like that still at play. And so we are just simply saying to take it slow. And we have the money in the budget to allocate. We will bring it back to you to allocate at the appointed time as those things flush out.
And we are not going to distribute any of that at this time,
No, I think, no.
not even to the current EDP structure.
If the EDP desires money in the short term, we can bring that to you and get that authorized. And I think that's the tact I would take, because we know that they're changing. Both those structures are changing, and we would anticipate the budget request, I want to say was $100,000 from the EDP. I anticipate that being true going forward. I mean, that's what we talked about during the budget process, but that's what's in the budget. It's in there for Economic Development Initiative, which is what it's been labeled before, and distributed to the EDP from that line item.
But that's under allocations, and the EDA is under an agreement and an ordinance. So in my mind, those are two different things.
But that can be funded out of the same line item. I mean, that's really how it was set up before. But again, the EDA doesn't have a budget, hasn't even completed its bylaws yet, although very diligently working towards that. And there was movement today. They'll be done soon. And I just don't know. I think for the next 6 months, you're going to be reacting with revenue for the EDA as they ask for it or as they need it. But I don't know that they know what they need to ask for yet. I mean, on any level. Yeah. I hope that makes sense and doesn't seem.
That last sentence you just said made more sense.
Yeah.
But I will not vote in favor of allocating funds to the current structure of the EDP. So I don't have my line by line budget in front of me, but if that is in there, I'm going to vote no.
We will not make any distributions of money to either the EDA, Development Corporation, or the EDP without asking you. And partly because those bylaws are yet to be approved by those organizations, either one of them.
Well, it was, I didn't know exactly where we landed on any of the agency allocations, actually, because I just didn't go back and look at that. But the way we left it at the last budget meeting, to me, was a little confusing. But if you're saying we have $200,000 set aside for general economic development, and we will be distributing that out on a case-by-case or need basis, then I'm okay with that.
For economic development, that's true.
For economic development in general.
I can bring back, I was going to try to dig up the actual community allocations unless you're willing to.
I was just, I just wanted to clarify on that. And then on the airport, I know you clarified what they were asking to use that for. And did we allocate that whole amount?
It is, but it is, again, it's on demand. It's as they need it. It's not automatic. So in other words, one of the comments that they had in their request was they'll hold the money and stockpile it till they have enough to do the master plan. Our view is that if the city would rather stockpile that money here, but we would earmark it for that request when it comes in. And that wasn't rejected or wasn't, hasn't been expressed to me that that was a bad idea, a bad approach. They just want to make sure that the money's there if they're going to go down the road of the master plan.
That
So-
makes sense.
So the community agency last year was $136,400. The budget today has $144,800. None of them increased. There was the addition of there was one addition, and I can't immediately see it.
Kendall-
Yeah,
Kendall
no,
and Frank.
it was the child development. No. I'll have to go back and look.
I think ASAP was new.
ASAP, yeah.
Oh, yeah, ASAP. There were a
I
couple of
can't
increases.
see it on my screen. I'm not picking it up.
And again, do they have to request that every quarter? Or do we just send them a check?
It depends on the amount that we allocate to them, whether or not they request each quarter.
And that it's above a certain amount? I think I used to know that, but I can't remember it at the moment.
I think according to the funding agreement, I think it's 10,000. If they receive more than 10,000, it has to be requested on a quarterly basis.
Thank you.
You all had previously approved that allocation agreement. And if you want to revisit it, we can certainly bring it back up if you want to look at that again. But it would probably be next year before it goes into effect.
No, I'm okay with holding the economic development money aside and kind of waiting and seeing where it needs to go.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
We have to roll call.
Oh, you're right, roll call.
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1994, an ordinance of the City of Danville, Kentucky, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year 7/1/2022 through 6/30/2023 by appropriating funds for the operation of city government. Mayor Paris?
Yes.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes.
Commissioner Cottle?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Item 12 is resolution number 2022-06-27-04. This is for the grant for the airport, and it needs approval. Mr. Coffey.
This is a grant the airport is applying for. Your signature is required because you're a sponsor. It is a value of about lost it. Too many sheets of paper. It's $111,988, and it is to develop the taxiway to the property towards the east of the original administrative building next to the current building where the air evac could potentially grow into.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move for approval of resolution 2022-06-2704.
Thank you, ma'am. Second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Counselor Dexter will get together and do this. I think it's DocuSign anyway, is it not? Yeah.
It is, and I believe it will just be circulated by email to the next available signatory, and I think it's at the county, as my understanding.
Okay. Very well. City manager report, Mr. Coffey.
Couple things real quick. I know it's a long agenda, so we won't labor on it too much further. We are working towards the second Economic Development Symposium. We are trying to develop the agenda. We do have an idea for the opening. We're trying to find a couple of other subjects that we want to hit on. The week of the 29th of August is kind of the target date currently, and so you don't necessarily have to reserve that because it could move the week before or the week after based on speaker availability. But just understand and know that we're working towards that, and we'll be getting some information out on that hopefully in the next couple weeks at the latest. The next thing is some documents that was placed on your desk. These are the draft bylaws that are prepared for the Danville County Development Corporation. We did put a note on the front of it, trying to explain kind of where it's at. We'll repeat that for you guys. These are the draft bylaws being provided by the EDP to the members of the EDP, seeking feedback and input. The bylaw committee developed these. The bylaw committee consists of the city and county representatives and private partners. That committee met, completed this draft document. This draft document has a bunch of notes on the right side. Those are comments made by the county. And then also that were vetted this morning at the EDA meeting as we were considering as the EDA, any comments we would have as a future partner to the agreement. And so those comments, Ms. Wagner at the county took time this afternoon to incorporate the EDA comments into this document already. And so this document reflects comments made by both the county and the EDA. And it also includes a couple notes that Kevin, the mayor, and myself made as being the representatives on the EDP of the city. We looked at the document together. One of the changes, for example, this document had the city manager being the representative on the board of directors for the Development Corporation. We three felt like that was the proper seat for the mayor. The city manager obviously is able to participate on the EDA, but we felt like the Development Corporation would be better served, the city would be better served with the mayor on that position of that board. The other changes that we three made were very minor compared to some of the other notes. So those three comments have been incorporated into this document. What we would like you to do, since you are the full city commission and not just the representatives of the EDP, is take this, and this is a document not to be necessarily approved by the city commission. We can take your feedback and give it to the EDP bylaw committee, and all the agencies that provide feedback to it, they will have to filter through all of those comments to arrive at what will be a proposed bylaw document for approval for the full EDP board. So the only agency that will approve these bylaws first will be the EDP board. Okay? Now, I hope that makes sense. That's what my note says for you. And I would ask, really, there's really only two of you that's not seen these. The mayor's seen them and commented. Kevin's seen them and commented. So Commissioner Holland and Ms. Terry, if you all would like to meet us or talk to us sometime tomorrow, we can figure out a time to sit down and go through them together if you want to put your comments on there for us, and we'll just send those back to the committee. I'd like to send those out to closed business tomorrow. The EDP requested them in by last Friday. The EDA met today, so we held on to them for a little bit. And so we'd like to, I think the fiscal court is going to have a similar discussion tomorrow at their meeting about the document. Again, to make sure that they have the board in public at least with the document. And so hopefully, as far as I'm concerned, by the end of the day tomorrow, I can hand this to the EDP and say, this is what we have. These are all the comments I could see, in other words. Does that seem reasonable to you all? I guess I'm asking for direction because I really don't know. Well, I don't want to go through it like a workshop. It doesn't really warrant a full commission meeting agenda. It's one of those where you just search for comments and you please provide those to us.
So if the EDP adopts these, the EDP basically at that point goes away.
It turns into the Development Corporation.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I have until Wednesday morning?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got something going on tomorrow that I may not be able to look at these. I'll look at these tomorrow evening. Yeah.
That's fine. That's
For a
fine.
week or two. to really look at it over the weekend.
Yeah.
No,
Every
I
day's
can-
pretty
I can get it
packed,
done
so.
tomorrow night if you'll get it, if you let
That's
me have
fine. No,
till Wednesday.
I'll communicate that outwardly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, sir?
That's all for tonight. I know, again, it's a long agenda, so we'll keep going.
Okay, we'll move into the hear the public section, which I promised. So anybody wants to address anything not on tonight's agenda, feel free. Seeing none, we'll move right on into commissioner comments, if anyone has any. Anybody have any?
I sent you all an article about the first test flight of the electric airplane with cargo. Just wanted to make sure you all saw that.
I was at a KLC Board of Directors meeting last week, and I raised the issue of most recent school shootings as well as all other mass shootings. And Mayor Ed Burtner, the mayor of Winchester, whom I'm considered to be one of the best mayors in this state, said most of the time they have more SROs, school resource officers, than they do police working that shift. You think about that.
Well, didn't they pass legislation that now we're going to have one at every school and not just for the school system? Did that pass? Every campus. Okay, gotcha.
So that, what's the difference between a well, in the case of Boyle County, that's a campus.
They,
In the case of Danville, you're looking at distinctly 3 different buildings. For- for- Yeah, 4. Yeah.
You got ACA, KSD, and maybe Montessori. There could be some
and
others
then,
in there.
and then Boyle has 2 more campuses in Parable Junction.
What we've talked about, Mayor, and I'll repeat this for this audience, what we've asked Chief to do is really look at, and we are hoping to have a meeting with the county SO and some of the schools, and what we want to make sure we do is put the correct officers at the correct location. For example, it may be more beneficial to have, frankly, a city police officer at the Boyle County's main schools campus, because it's in the city. And then 2, when you think of kids, they know each other from Danville and Boyle. My kids know plenty of kids at Danville and vice versa. So it's not, while there will be a benefit to making sure that your law enforcement agency is consistent from school to school inside of the community at minimum, I would think. And so really, without having, a defined plan per se, we are asking that the chief is working really hard on trying to figure out what that should look like for our community overall. And I know that we're trying to have more meetings. I just don't want that to catch anybody off guard if people are wondering why the city is trying to have a conversation with the sheriff's office about schools. It's got nothing to do with Boyle County, Danville. It has to do with where the school's at, who can respond most efficiently. That's our priority. That has been the priority expressed to us by the school administrators. And I give Chief a lot of credit for being in front of that, trying to talk about it, trying to have a plan with his staff.
Chief, did I read somewhere that they're looking at developing a program for veterans with proper training for the SRO positions?
There were some states looking at that.
I think it was hiring veterans in general directly into the police officer position, based on their experience in the military. I think that's a great idea.
There's some, there's a lot of variables to that. But it has been explored. Kentucky just started a program before this issue even arose about military to law enforcement. It's a brand-new program. They started it probably maybe in the fall of last year before we even had these incidents arise. But it's for people that are active military and they're about ready to get out of that active service. It would make it easier for them to transfer to a police department on a lateral basis. They would do some of the required testing while they're inside the military active. So once they depart the military, they go right into the training academy. And that's one of the things that is still an obstacle, that 20, I think it's 20 weeks, somewhere around that time frame.
I think it's within 6 months of their, the end of their active military. Is that what I read?
Correct.
So the other thing I got, and I know we've spent a lot of time over the past couple of years talking about grant writers, et cetera, and I can't find this list, but I'm going to find it. But one of the things that was on this list that somebody successfully secured was $45,000 for an amphitheater. And I believe with this Parks Master Plan that we're talking about, I know in the conversation I had last week with Mr. Cody, he's looking at a place to put some kind of outdoor performance facility. So there are grants out there for that. And then the other thing, did we apply for a cybersecurity grant? Bridget, did we apply for a cybersecurity grant?
I am not aware if we did.
That's a one-pager, $7,500. This is the kind of thing that I think we should have somebody dedicated to this effort. That's free money, one page. Shouldn't take very long to fill that out. So,
Grants are like scholarships. They're out there.
Yep.
In every shape and form and amount of money. All you got to do is apply for them.
I'm gonna find this list though. It was eye-opening to me. Anything else? So move right on into item 14, financial payment of the bills. Chair will entertain a motion for the bills as presented.
I'll move for approval of the bills as presented in the amount of $208,032.17.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Terry. Commissioner Cottle, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Item 15 is resolution number 2022-06-27-05. This is a memorandum of understanding using ARPA funds with Boyle County. Mr. Carrier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. As everybody's fully aware, the city of Danville currently provides regional water and sewer utility services to both Junction City and Perryville. Back in 2021, the United States Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act to provide funding for eligible state and local governments hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. So this memorandum of agreement will authorize Boyle County Fiscal Court and the city of Danville to utilize $2,810,300 of county ARPA funds exclusively for utility infrastructure improvements in both Junction and Perryville. And what does some of that fund go to? It goes to, for example, your pump stations, new pumps, emergency connections, master control panels, capacity increases, as well as improvements to the existing Perryville wastewater treatment plant with mechanical screening and flow meters and disinfection technology. So,
Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
I'll move for approval of resolution 2022-062705.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cottle, thank you. We're in discussion. I want to say this is a great example of collaboration between city government, county government, because they have opted to use a good portion of their ARPA allocation for facilities that are essentially City of Danville water facilities, but in doing so, it will serve as a means of keeping tax rates low on those two areas.
And that's the 2.8 million, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So thank you for negotiating that with the county. Appreciate them joining in. Anything else? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 16 is resolution number 2022-06-27-06. Smith Contractors change order. Continue on, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is change order number 4 for Phase 1 of the wastewater treatment plant project that's ongoing with Smith Contractors as the prime contractor. The change order includes foundation corrective actions. If you recall, some time ago, I discussed a mud seam that was in the foundation that was located during initial rock removal process. That includes deduction of concrete coatings, other appurtenances not included in the original design, and modifications to some overhead doors, as well as weather delays on the contract. Total comes to $33,662.92.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2022-06-2706.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, Chair call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 17, resolution number 2022-06-27-07. This is an amendment contract with HDR. Continue, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is in relation to HDR contract amendment number 4. If you recall, we added 3 months to the existing construction contract for the Perryville Water Booster Pump Station and new tower on Tuggle Road. The purpose of this amendment is to allow HDR to be compensated for providing those same construction activities for an additional 3 months. Total is $10,074.
Chair will entertain a motion for the resolution.
I'll move to approve Resolution 2022-06-2707.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, thank you, ma'am. Discussion?
Is this supply chain issues or?
Yeah, I believe you may have not been in the last meeting that I brought up for the 3-month extension for the contractor that's doing the work out there. But yes, really what this boils down to is delay in getting proper materials. And you run into that with our generators, the master control panel, and a lot of different things that has multiple electronic components to it. It just takes 1 or 2 of those components to set it off multiple months. So this is in relation to that, yes, ma'am.
Do we have a finish date close?
Right now, we have, finish date will be in 3 months from this date. So.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion?
I thought we already
I already
did.
made a motion.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? Sorry, I'm on to the next one. I need to back up. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 18 is the first reading of ordinance number 1996. Ms. Lester's going to read us about the new noise ordinance amendment.
Good night. Good night.
Yeah, it's getting there.
We're getting there. You have before you the noise ordinance we've been working on diligently with the Zone Code company, and this ordinance will address where that we were having issues with our retail establishments, sidewalk cafes, and outdoor dining areas, and private outdoor entertainment and event venues. So the changes that we've made are all on page 6, under 10, 11, and 12. So I'm not sure if you want me to just read those or go through those, or if you have questions.
It's a little bit different approach. Rather than finding ways to permit things, the simple solution, which is like Attorney Dexter and I talked about a little bit briefly, sometimes it helps to get just a clean eye at it. It seemed to be the most efficient way is just to exempt out the things that you're trying to permit, rather than trying to figure out a way to permit little details within each one of those categories. And so you are exempting retail establishments essentially during business hours to, But however, you are maintaining a limit on the sound overall, which is basically what's been determined as a potential nuisance. Same thing for cafes and other outdoor dining areas throughout the city, not just downtown. But you are specifically exempting out the noise generated by those types of enterprises, so long as the sound's directed in. And similarly, outdoor entertainment venues such as, believe it or not, Pioneer Playhouse falls into that category, as well as the showroom, which through this revised regulation are now exempt from noise ordinance. However, they do have hours of operations as indicated. Basically, we are not indicating a start time. We are indicating that you must be done time on all those establishments in order to really create a benchmark to start from. If something changes with sidewalk cafes, for example, and we need to just strike that, we just strike 11 from this ordinance down the road. So we tried to break it out into 3 categories, trying to handle it in one note, and it permits a lot of the things that we have lamented over trying to figure out what in the world to do with them. And so this enables, it's an enabling ordinance by exempting them out.
So we do have a couple of places now, believe it or not, that stay open past 11. Does that just mean they need to be inside?
It's a guideline. The outdoor sound should be off by 11 theoretically if you're downtown, because you are near homes. So you're trying to balance the people that live there against the business a little bit.
And if there's music, I understand that.
Right.
But there may still be people outside.
Correct. This addresses the noise generated by them, like sound, like the amplified sound, things like that need to be off and that is the standard that most communities are using, is 11 p.m. is what we find. Or how we were advised is that the 11 p.m., because our knee jerk was later than that originally, thinking aligning with closing hours, but the suggestion, it was recommended to us to peel back from that to 11. Specifically because there are some of those in residential areas.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I will, move for the approval. First reading of ordinance 1996.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottle. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Holland, thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion?
Well,
I'd just add this, that even though it's 9 pages or whatever it is, instead of simply providing the 3 small paragraphs that were added, I tend to try to give context of the greater scene of which we are amending, so you can see it all without having to consult a code book. So it gives you the overall picture of what we were doing, but then the Cliff Notes version just provides the exemption for or outdoor dining cafes, retail establishments, or commercial event venues during those normal business hours that are cited there.
One more change too, we want to make sure in section 8, which is on page 7, section 8-47, special permits. What we did there, before there was a number that said in section 3 that indicated you could only get 4 special events per year. We just eliminated that restriction altogether. We didn't necessarily care how many you had, so long as each one was permitted properly. So thinking the farmer's market, for example, on Saturday morning at Constitution, they're there every weekend, right? So they're going to obviously go way past 4. So it just seemed like a reasonable, the goal is not to prevent them. The goal is to manage them so that noise isn't a problem for the neighbors. And so long as that they apply for the particular permit, then the total number's removed.
So someone wants to have music and amplified music, and it is outdoors, they still need to get a noise permit.
Not if you're one of the ones exempted. So if you're a sidewalk cafe, dining area, event venue, like the showroom, you do not have to get a special permit, you're exempted. However, if the library wants to have a Saturday morning concert every Saturday in the little garden space there along Third Street, they just file for a permit and they can do it. There's no limit to, say they can only do it 4 times a year, they can do it every Saturday for the summer, 12 times.
Okay.
Or any enterprise similar to that. You don't necessarily have to be a commercial or entertainment enterprise to benefit from the ordinance.
Any further questions or comments?
I was just gonna say, I think Bridget or somebody mentioned it's sort of a organic, fluid document anyway, so I think this is a good start. I think you
Very. That's
hit
what I was
all
gonna
the,
say. We
hit
can-
all the key points, so.
We can tweak this if
Yeah.
we need to, and if there's something that we missed. But I appreciate you all working on this. And I know that the business owners will be very happy.
And there's always state law that, you know, something is too loud there, there's a state law about noise as well. So,
Right.
you know, law enforcement could come in and just say, hey, that's too loud, per the state statute. But like you said, it does give them the opportunity to go ahead and do something.
Any further questions or comments? None. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
We have to roll.
Oh, sorry. Gotta do it again.
This is the first reading of ordinance number 1996, an ordinance amending City of Danville, Kentucky Code of Ordinance, Chapter 8, nuisances, Article 3, control of sound, Section 5-12, to exempt sounds from retail establishments, sidewalk cafes, and outdoor entertainment and event venues in the City of Danville. Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner Cottle,
Yes.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes. Item 19 is first reading of ordinance number 1997, alcohol ordinance amendment. Continue, ma'am.
Yes, some of the changes from the noise ordinance need to be incorporated in the alcohol ordinance, and then we also have found, for that one, we made that change, and then we also realized that our alcohol ordinance prohibits disposable cups, which we use with our entertainment destination center when it's active. So, we have made that adjustment that when that zone is active, and then they can use disposable cups. We also made a change in there for sidewalk cafes, that they can leave their tables out. The ordinance said they had to put them in every night. We had talked about this during COVID, but we never changed the ordinance. Also, state law is fixing to change effective July 14th, that servers in restaurants and stuff can be 18 if they're under the supervision of someone who is 20 years old. So we've incorporated that change in our ordinance as well, because our city ordinance still kept that at 20. So by the time this gets a second reading and passage, it will be effective under state law. We probably go ahead and make that change.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move for approval of ordinance number 1997.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner,
Holland?
yeah, Holland, I'm sorry.
knows who she
I'm into
is.
reading this thing. So let me ask you a
The one over
question.
there.
I know at KLC, we got into this discussion about allowing people in the entertainment district with a cup, prohibiting them from walking into a retail establishment.
Currently, they are not allowed to, under administrative reg for that. I have sent in a request for an advisory opinion from the Alcohol Beverage Control Board, because the KAR and the addresses specifically that they are to only go into licensed premises.
So there's nothing we can do in our ordinance that would supersede. Okay. Keep us posted on that, because I hope they come through with some logic on that.
If not, we talked about putting that on the agenda for KLC to talk to the legislature.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, we
Oppose
have
it.
to
No,
roll.
we gotta do the thing. do the
Ordinance,
thing.
go ahead, madam.
This is the first reading of ordinance number 1997, an ordinance amending City of Danville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2.5, alcoholic beverages, Article 6, conditions, prohibitions, and restrictions, and Article 14, patio and outdoor sales. Commissioner Cottle,
Yes.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Mayor Paris,
Yes.
Commissioner Holland.
Yes.
Item 20 is resolution number 2022-06-27-08. This is a signature approval for the Heritage Council. Continue, ma'am.
Yes, this is just a form required for bidders, officers, and contractors, and that allows us to get our reimbursement from the certified local government grants that we have.
Do you hear a motion for the resolution?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2022-06-2708.
Thank you, Commissioner Hollins. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cardle, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 21 is resolution number 2022-06-27-09. Contract approval with Bluegrass Ad.
That's not Rebecca Hafley.
That's not Rebecca Hafley.
I've done this invitation 2 commission meetings in a row. I'm working on my suntan now. So
I don't
this is
believe
our
you.
annual contract with Bluegrass Side. They do the mapping for the 911 system, which does the mapping for all emergency services. They've done it forever, since I've been here anyway. But they do the 911 stuff, put it on the maps, any new buildings, any new structures, anything like that. They also update the mapping for our CAD system on a quarterly basis. It's a requirement for Homeland Security as well for the CMRS, which runs the dispatch center funds.
So it's $10,000 expenditure.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
I'll move for approval of Resolution 2022-06-2709.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry.
Second.
Mr. Cardle, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Resolution number 2022-06-27-10, Axon contract approval. Chief Gray.
So Taser, this Axon is the maker of Taser, and they've gone to a new pricing platform. We will need 40 Tasers probably in 2 years instead of 4 or 5. But what this new contract does, it puts us on a contract with them. They will supply us with 40 new Tasers at the beginning of this year. For this contract, we get free maintenance and free replacement on all the Tasers, the units and battery packs, the cartridges themselves, and the replacement cartridges. There's two type of cartridges. There's a training cartridge, and then there's an actual cartridge for use. The cartridges are $28, I think, roughly. We have to have 2 of those for each Taser. They say just based on this and just normal use, we'll save about $6,000 per year. But we do extra Taser training throughout the year. We don't do just one, we do 2. So
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move for approval of Resolution 2022-06-2710.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Holland, thank you. Questions, comments? Chief, we're just locking in the price. We're not writing a full check for the whole thing.
no, we're just locking in the price right under $30,000 a year. Is what the contract
It's
will be.
5 years at $29,175 a year.
Yes.
Any further questions, comments? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. That ends our agenda for normal business. Do we have any need for an executive session?
No, sir.
Well, in that
Wow.
case, Chair
Hurry.
will entertain a motion
I move
to
we adjourn.
adjourn.
Second, before he changes his mind.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Have a good evening.
What's left of it?